Good morning, everybody. Welcome to You Got This with Melinda Garvey. I first wanted just to welcome you and thank you for joining me each week and just, say how humbled I am that I'm able to actually talk to you and give you some advice on things. And by no means is my opinion the end all, but I just really appreciate being able to use my experience to help be a role model for others. I talk about that a lot, just the importance of role models, and I appreciate so much the opportunity to be that for you. So we're going to get going this morning. First of all, I have a question from Katie Pascal. And she asks, what is your greatest piece of advice for young women in the workplace? Hi, Lisa. Um, First of all, this is a really, really important question, and I'm going to get on my soapbox a little bit, so I apologize, and I'm going to generalize a little bit, so I'm going to apologize for that as well. But I think it's important to note this. For young women today, what I find, and I work with a lot of them, I work with a lot of wonderful, wonderful young women, but what I do find is that things are a little different than they were, for me, us old ladies, right? In the workplace, I feel that young women aren't taking advantage of making connections beyond their own circle. So I think particularly millennial women have really banded together, which is wonderful. They banded together as a group, but millennial women sort of connect and network and are around other millennial women, and they don't really reach outside that circle, and they haven't been doing that. And what's happening recently is that I've been asked to speak at all these events where there are a lot of millennial women, and the number one question I get asked is, how do I find a role model? How do I find a mentor? How do I find someone to help me get to this next level of my career? Because millennials are starting to age up, right? They're in their early 30s now. They're ready to make that next big move. And they don't have anybody that's right that they can look up to that's reaching down to help them make that move. So what I would encourage young women in the workplace to do is just get outside of your own circles. Look at building relationships with women that are the next level up or two levels up or even five levels up, and make sure you do that in your personal life as well. I've got friends that are 10, 15, 20 years older than me and 10, 15, 20 years younger than me, and I think it's really important just to be well-rounded and to see other points of view. And also it's amazing, and I mean that going both directions, not just being friends with older people, but really looking at that full scope and making that your network very inclusive, because that's really what's going to help you the most in the workplace. And the other piece of advice that I would just give young women is just to understand that, yes, you know what? We do have to work a little bit harder, especially right now. We've got a lot of great things going on with this women's movement, but we're not quite there yet. Okay. And we all have to step up and work hard, and we have to make sure that we are raising our hands and having our voice heard all the time, because that's what's going to create change for you and also for future generations. So, make sure that you're putting 150% in every single day, because that's what you need to do to get ahead. And that's what you need to do for us as a whole, as women, to help advance this women's movement and really take our rightful place in the boardroom, in senior level positions in companies. Because as research has borne, companies who have women in leadership positions are actually more profitable and more successful. So that's really what you need to strive for. So thank you so much for that question. And I just think it's a really important one. And I'm glad that you asked that. I'm glad we could connect with young women, millennial women, because they are our future. They're the largest group of women in the workplace. My next question is from Dale Pfeiffer, and she actually asks about what kinds of things that you can do on a daily basis to elevate your personal brand. And I think that I talk a lot about practicing what you preach. I actually did a video about that last week when I was realizing myself that I was preaching a lot and I needed to make sure that I was practicing. And I think when you're looking at your personal brand, what is it that you stand for? And a lot of people can talk about what they stand for, and they can say, oh, I believe in this, I believe in supporting women, I believe in whatever it may be. But are you out there doing something? In fact, I have a good friend, she's watching right now, Lisa Copeland, who has really talked a lot about this the march with young people against, assault rifles and gun control. And, she's talked about it a lot, and she's very eloquent and very passionate about everything that she's doing with that. But guess what she did? She put her money where her mouth is. She showed up at that march, and she was out there marching. And you know what? She got a lot of flack on Facebook from people for doing that, but she stood up for what she believed in. And I think that that's just really, that's the one thing, if you did that every day, your personal brand would thrive, because people just want to know who you really are. They want to know that when you say something, when you say you're going to be there, you're going to help somebody, you're going to connect, you're going to follow up on email, that you actually do that and you actually walk the walk. It's really as simple as that. But I know sometimes it isn't simple, because it's real easy to sit on a Facebook Live video, for example, and talk about things. And then how do we actually put those things into action? And I just want to say that that's really one of the reasons why we launched On the Dot, because on a daily basis, we're giving you 4 minutes of take action, 4 minutes of a woman to watch who's going to inspire you to take action, because it's not easy. And we need that encouragement every single day to make sure that we are taking those steps forward. And those role models will help us sustain that. They will help us live out our personal brand. And so I just encourage you to make sure that you're putting those people in front of you that are going to encourage you, because it's not easy. Talk is easy. The walk is a lot harder. So make sure that you have people around you that are supporting you in that. And our last question today is from Carla McDonald. And she asked how mothers, by example, can teach their daughters kindness so we can stop the mean girl epidemic. And this is a really tough one, and not particularly my expertise, but I'm going to reference you to someone in a minute that I know is. But I think that this is a really, really critical question, and critical to our whole women's movement, and how this is actually going to play out for us. Last week, I actually talked about how women don't always support women in the workplace, and how do we create an environment and an ecosystem where all the time women are supporting and encouraging and have each other's backs. And I think it actually starts really young. It starts when, in the very, very early years. And one of the things, this is probably not going to be very popular, but I actually have a son, but I go to his school frequently and run into other kids. And whenever I see girls who are sort of being mean or snarky, sometimes that's what their mother is being like when I meet them. I think leading by example, that's a perfect question that Carla asked, is that leading by example is actually you not being that way. You need to show your daughter and talk to your daughter about all the things you're doing in your everyday life at the office, that you're helping and supporting other women. You need to talk to your daughters about this women's movement, and that even if they're 5 and 6 and 8 and 10 or 12 or 13, whatever that age group, that young age, talk to them about how critical it is that they start now, right? That they understand that how they treat their friends is really indicative of how we're going to treat other women in the workplace. So I think this is just one continuous spectrum, and I think it's such an important issue. And I said I was going to give you a reference because there's someone who's much more skilled on bullying and just understanding how to teach kindness. And she actually has something called the Kindness Campaign. And her name is Andrew Lamont, and you can look up the Kindness Campaign, and I'll actually put the link in this video as well, so you can check her out. But she actually has curriculum that she puts into schools dealing with this exact issue, how to get kids to understand how to treat each other and how to stop bullying in its tracks. Because I do believe that this is just one continuous spectrum. And if we can stop bullying, and especially with girls and the mean girl syndrome in the very, very early formative years, that it will start to dissipate once they become women and in the workplace, and that we can support each other and have each other's back and continuously root for each other. So just to recap a little bit, so we talked about young women and what they can do and how they need to make sure that they're getting outside of their circle and having friends and colleagues that are a couple levels up and even a couple levels down, and really expanding those circles, that expanding that network just outside of their own age group or their own friend circle or their own level. And then we talked about how to raise your personal brand every day, what things you can do every day. And it's really as simple as living it out. But we also talked about how it's not that simple, that we need encouragement to do that, that talking the talk is easy, but walking the walk. So always keep yourself in check and put yourself with role models and people that will keep you in check and will help you continue to do that, to actually walk that walk, because that's going to be the thing that's going to strengthen your personal brand more than anything else. And lastly, we just talked about the bullying issue with young women and how mothers can actually model for their daughters, and that how important it is, and that when we see moms being snarky and being mean and catty, daughters are picking up on that. And usually you see a mother and daughter, unfortunately, and you see some similarities. So you might just want to think about that and make sure that, we all have those slips when we're catty, right? But making sure that your daughters aren't exposed to that. And also teaching your daughters that this is a continuous spectrum, that they're part of this women's movement too. Make them feel part of a movement, even at a very young age. I think that that's really critically important, that they understand that they can participate in this even as young women, and that by doing that, that when that spectrum continues into the workforce, I think we're going to see a lot of change in how women treat each other in the workplace as well. So I appreciate you joining me. Please add your questions. I need some more questions for the following weeks. I love being here with you and answering these questions. And I hope that you've gotten some really great nuggets out of this today. But most of all, you've got to remember that you got this. You can do this. You have all the skills and the talent and everything you need to succeed. And we're here to support you. So we'll see you next week.